So we are back, and our next presenter is Tomas Beinaravičius. He is the head of cyber and digital risk at Transcendent Group Baltics. His primary expertise lie within information and cybersecurity. Together with strong technical skills, Tomas is an experienced leader of information security effort within organizations of different size, as well as the technical teams. He has served as a trusted advisor for multiple international organizations within the financial sector. His topic today, are we secure? It is the question often asked by the leaders of organizations. The presentation explores the common misconceptions about cybersecurity controls that eventually lead to false sense of security. The speaker will also suggest a few possible ways to improve the state of cybersecurity. So Thomas, are we secure? Screen is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll try to share my screen.
Okay, we can see everything, so please.
Yeah, cool. So thanks a lot. And actually, this question, "Are we secure?" Comes quite often to the agenda of different meetings and different organizational setups. And when I'm asked this question, my usually answer is, well, yes, but actual answer is no. However, you cannot answer that question, so you have to be a bit more nuanced in that situation. So I definitely never say no, but I'll try to explain what are the issues with the security. And in this situation, you probably know that there can't be a yes and no answer. It is much more nuanced than that. However, when we start discussion with companies and with company management, I find that there are lots of misconceptions about security and about the security state, and one of those to start from, one of those misconceptions is that we can do prevention. Sadly, in my experience, prevention eventually fails, and that is for two reasons. First reason is that there are really skilled and smart intruders, and it's completely true fact that some intruders are smarter than you and smarter than most of us. Combined to the fact that most intruders are unpredictable for us, we cannot predict them in easy way. That means that prevention eventually fails, regardless of how many tools and people and technologies we have. At some point, something fails. There are more reasons to that. Actually, there are reasons for prevention failures that technology is not really sophisticated enough, or there are we rely on people's activities too much, or we think that there cannot be malicious activity inside the organization. So all of that leads to the fact, well, eventually prevention fails. Question is when, and question is what we can do about it. Do we have plan how to deal with when prevention fails? And additional question, can we detect the fact that actually prevention have failed? So these are very two very important questions. But of course, then we fall into discussion that we have tools and which are like antivirus, endpoint detection and response, intrusion detection systems, intrusion prevention systems, which also gives a bit false sense of security, especially antivirus. I love antivirus example. There are multiple studies within multiple organizations, within multiple time frames, which show that actually antiviruses doesn't work. And our work as when we work with our penetration testing teams, we definitely have ability to bypass any of the technologies. And sometimes this bypass is really easier than you think. One of the reasons why those tooling fails is that automated detection is really hard. And one of the reasons why it is hard is that it should keep false positive ratio at about 0. It is pretty easy to build an antivirus or more modern EDR, which has good detection ratio, but having both good detection ratio and very low false positive ratio is pretty difficult. It is easy to build good detection ratio with large false positive ratio, but having both, it's quite difficult. So actually, just relying on tools is really bad idea for to show the state of the security of the organization. Another misconception which we see quite often is that, well, we have DDoS protection. And well, DDoS attacks are quite visible in the public media, in the news, but it's only one specific type of the attacks. And yes, DDoS protection is important, but once again, one type of the attacks. On the other hand, there are lots of mistakes in configuration of DDoS protection systems. Those DDoS protection tools and systems are not tested. So to implement good DDoS protection, you have to know quite a lot. You have to test them extensively, and that's not usually the case. It is quite rare that companies test for DDoS protection. And the next one is really talking about vulnerability scans. The next misconception is that, well, we do vulnerability scans. Actually, neither vulnerability scan tool can reliably detect all the issues within the organization, especially when we speak about application security area. That means that you can only scratch the surface and kind of check the very low hanging fruits. These are good to discover such things like lack of patching, lack of some very obvious vulnerabilities, but actually modern frameworks, so software development frameworks, create a situation that we really have quite reasonably secure applications. And all the issues within the applications are mostly in the business logic and how the business logic, how the data within business logic and authentication is handled. Authentication authorization. This is very hard to test with automated tools, and usually manual work is required. And manual work, well, means normal penetration testing. That means that actually vulnerability scanners are not able to detect those classes of the vulnerabilities. Besides that, of course, worth to mention that any test, any penetration test, any vulnerability scan is actually just point-in-time assessment. Situation changes quite often, and especially in the organizations where companies release organizations that release code quite often, the situation changes quite dramatically, quite fast. So that also worth to have in mind. Phishing simulation is one more misconception. Means if we rely on phishing simulation as a phishing simulation and training of the employees, that they won't click on malicious links, well, that means that we failed on the technical side. We are not protecting them well enough. And on the other hand, it only requires one click in some cases to company be affected. For large companies, there will be always at least one person that does the job and clicks, installs, and so on and so on. So once again, good question is how we protect in technical means and how we detect when the prevention have failed. Larger organizations start talking about SIEM, and that sometimes follows by the small organizations, which also say that, well, if we will have a SIEM, then we probably will all of our problems will be solved. And in my experience, actually, SIEM as a tool and as a concept is not intended for small or medium organizations. For large enterprises, they could be a good tool to consolidate all the security information into one place, but smaller and even medium organizations will not be able to support it. They will not be able to have enough staff to look at the detections, and in some cases if the detection is not noticed within a couple of hours, it is already too late. Intruders can do their job. And even if you have SOC on top of SIEM, quite often we have question: is the SOC staffed enough? Companies complain that they cannot hire competent staff into their cybersecurity organizations. Additional two questions related to that is that does the SOC has enough visibility? Can they see everything that happens in the organizations, or actually there are blind spots where which systems are not monitored? And even we have sometimes even have questioned, does it have mandate to do something besides notifying affected system owner or party that there is something happening in your system. And this one is interesting. Companies say that, well, we are ISO 27001 certified. This is interesting discussion whether certification of information security management system gives you enough benefit. Definitely, it gives some structure. It shows that you deal with information security in structured way. However, examples show that actually even ISO 27001 certified companies are getting breached. Notorious example is Equifax, which where intruders were in at least 70 days and did data exfiltration during that time. And they were, of course, ISO 27001 certified company. So saying that, well, we have ISO 27000 certification doesn't show a lot. I really have know some organizations which are ISO 27001 certified, but I wouldn't plug my laptop into their network just to being afraid of malware that is on that network. SOC 2 type of attestations potentially are better because they are checking not only point in time, but verifying for the period of time that you are keeping certain level of security. That still is not a guarantee, and that is not a certification that you are safe, but it's a good reasonable achievement, so to say, and then good reasonable way. Of course, especially for the larger company, SOC 2 certification is costly. So, question: what shall we do? I would say that having right balance of people, processes, and tools is important. And for many of organizations, I think we should start from people. because if we have people, then the people can build processes and operate the tools. Some other organizations have a pretty good people base, but they are underinvested in tooling. And tooling is also very important because you have to have some sort of tool, some sort of automation to do the job. Processes and culture is also important, and especially culture. If you have a culture that works towards security and ensure that no corners should be cut for security, then it's much easier both for people and the tools that they operate. So assessment and achieving right balance is important thing. I'm not saying that this is easy way to do. And as I mentioned in my first slide, there cannot be yes or no answer in the question, are we secure? It's always more nuanced and needs quite a lot of investigation and balancing between different topics. So thank you very much for this, and I'm open for some questions.
Thank you for your presentation. It was quite nice to hear that usual asked questions, are we secure, can be answered in more details. And one question, what are some practical steps the organization can take to improve their overall cybersecurity posture? Maybe some main steps could you offer?
Essentially, it really depends on the size of the organization. For smaller organization, having one or two people that are working with security and then having this security mindset is a very good first step, because usually this is not the case. And then we can start talking about what tools they need and what processes are required in addition to that. For larger organizations, usually they have people, but the tooling is somewhat missing. And then you need to really assess, because for large organizations it really differs from the organization to the organization. But checking whether you have right people, I think, is probably the first step anyway.
And talking about right people, how can organizations ensure the security measures are effective and sustainable over time? How to manage the changes and day by day new ideas, new situations? What happens to the organization? Is it the new department or additional department needed, or someone who should check everything day by day? How it can be solved?
If we speak about daily work, then actually and when we speak about large organizations, dedicated people are needed together with the processes. For example, when we speak about changing environment, one of the first processes that we need to have in the organization is overall change management, so that changes would be made in controlled way, and there won't be there won't be situation where left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. That would reduce overall need to work for the security stuff. And other processes related to that, which are really basic, like access control, and of that we manage who can access to certain information, like already mentioned, change management, like patching and backups. These are very, very basics, but in many organizations, if we set that right, we already have very good base to move forward in security.
So basically everyone should be aware, and just for simple things also.
Yes, of course.
Thank you very much for your presentation and for your answers. It was nice to hear you, so thank you very much. And we are preparing for our next presentation.